Hi guys, this is Travis from Scroll Saw Goodies. Welcome back to another episode as we continue to work on this dog portrait. Again, I'm working on the dog portrait being done in Adobe Photoshop, and if you remember last time we left off, we kind of did this section, kind of the ear and kind of the cheek area of the dog. So this time around, let's go ahead and work up in this area over here, and maybe we could get the ears and the forehead done by the time we get to the end of this this episode. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. Actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the original picture, and we'll kind of flip back and forth and just kind of see where we want to start. Let's kind of start in this area here. We have a nice dark patch that kind of comes up and into this kind of the Widow's Peak area. So let's go ahead and just kind of start outlining that area. I'm going to take the number 5 brush and let's move this down a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and define those areas. So I want to kind of come in through here. All of this is black and it kind of pokes right back up into this area. So let's go ahead and grab a larger brush and just chunk out a large part of this. I'm going to zoom in a little bit just so we don't get too carried away with the paintbrush and take out more than we really intended. So we're going to go ahead and I think we're doing pretty good there. So I'm going to select a number 9 brush. It's still a pretty large brush, but it just kind of helps me get in there and see the details. So I'm going to jump in a little bit further and switch brushes to the number 5. And now we get to start defining some of our areas here. Let's kind of open this area up and open this area up. We don't really need that. And we could kind of start playing with some of our shadows and highlights and kind of give interesting shapes in through here as we kind of define this large black area. Let's go ahead and let's see here. I think we could go ahead and take that section out. Let's see. Okay, so now we kind of have that section defined. Let's pop back out just a little bit and see what we have to work with. And let's go ahead. I'm going to switch to a larger brush again. I'm going to select the 13 and just kind of get rid of some of this extra fluff that we really is not necessary. I got a little carried away there. Okay. I think we're going to get rid of all this stuff here. I kind of like this area in through here, and I think we're going to develop that a little bit more, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. I'm going to zoom in. I'm at 200%, so I'm going to select my brush size again, which is a number 5, and go ahead and clean up some of these areas and just make them a little bit easier to cut. Okay, now zoom out. Kind of look at these areas here. Let's work on this area right up through in here and see if we can't get a little bit more definition up there. Obviously this area is going to be connecting. Let's pull that out. Let's look at the original picture. almost looks like this comes down a little bit up into there, so we'll kind of fill that area in. And we're going to need a bridge up here somewhere. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this area here, because I don't think it's completely necessary to have that. And then we'll just kind of hint that there's a continuing line right through there. Now let's take a look at the ear. Let's look at the shape of the ear. And it looks like we more or less, there's a little bit of fuzziness over here, which would be kind of fun to play with. But over here, it looks like it's more or less on target. So I'm going to use the shift key. If you remember the dot to dot technique, that if you put down a dot and you hold down the shift key, you could do a series of lines, which almost kind of creates a dot to dot effect that we used to do as a kid. It's a really great technique if you need pretty good control over your lines. I'm gonna kind of take that little hump off right there, and I'm just kind of using a little bit of liberties here, just kind of making my own choices, what I think might look good. And I think we're doing pretty good. I think we could open that entire area up right through here. And let's go ahead and clean up this area. I'm going to zoom into 200%, and I'm just going to use my number 5, clean up the gray areas, and just really crispen up some of these lines a little bit. If the lines aren't really well defined, it's really hard to follow with the scroll saw. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure about as much of this as I can could be nice and crisp. And we'll open this section up. Something along those lines. Let's zoom out a little bit and take a look at the original. We're going to have to bridge this area and this area. As you can see, there is a line that actually separates those two. So we gotta make a few decisions here. So let's go ahead, let's maybe bridge this section here. And maybe we'll leave this section separate. So let's go ahead and open this up just a little bit. Get rid of that. That's just too much work. I don't like those little holes. Some people do like them. I'm not one of them. So since it's my pattern, I'm going to do what I want. Okay. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit. Remember, the zoom out is control and hitting plus or minus, and that will allow you to zoom in and out of your project. So this area here is, for the most part, kind of the way I like it. So I'm just going to kind of go through and sharpen up the lines as much as I can. And kind of get rid of some of those gray areas. We don't need gray areas. It's just going to cause us problems. We needed a little bridge there, so I opened that up. Let's kind of open this a little bit like that. And let's get rid of some of this garbage over here. And let's zoom out a little bit and see where we're at. You know, I think I'm going to close this section off completely. So, it's just a matter of closing it off and filling it in. And I'm not sure if I really need this peninsula here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. Yeah, see, now it's starting to kind of take shape. Let's pull this out so we can see a little bit more of the picture. Let's go ahead and thicken this area up. Okay, so now let's work over here a little bit. We got kind of little fuzzies here, so it's going to be a little tricky. Looks like there's a little bit of background over here. If you look over here in the original picture, see this dark area? That's the floorboards of the bedroom that we're looking at, and it was saved in the original picture. So I'm going to grab a big brush, and I'm just going to take that out, because all that's going to do is confuse us. And since I confuse easy, I want to get rid of that problem. So we've got a lot of little fuzziness in the ears, which really makes for interesting cutting. So let's go ahead and play with that a little bit. I'm going to work on this section right here. Let's grab my number 5 again. And let's open that up and kind of sharpen up some of these edges here. And this is kind of where it gets a little bit more fun, because it's not nearly as critical that you get the lines exactly right, because the fuzziness, the fuzzy ears and the hair sticking out, you have a lot of latitude there. So you could pretty much get away with whatever your heart desires. So just go nuts. Okay, I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to try to figure out what to do with that little section. I think I'm just going to connect it and see what happens. So we're going to go ahead and connect that. Bring this down in through here. And I'm also going to bring this, kind of get it a little squirrely looking hair. Make sure we have enough of a bridge there. Zoom out a little bit, check our work. I think I'm for the most part happy with that. We do have kind of some weak areas, so let's go ahead and strengthen those. This area here is a little weak, so we'll add a bridge there. And this area will probably be fairly weak, so we'll add a little bit of space there as well. Okay, let's zoom out, see where we're at. Okay, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now the next section I think we'll do is kind of this section right through here. Kind of give them a little bit of a brow, and kind of figure out how we're gonna go about doing that. So let's go ahead and zoom in. Here's a nice dark area here, so let's just start with that, start playing, and see what we gotta come up with. Right through here will probably connect. Oops, I ended up choosing the wrong tool. Let's grab our brush tool again, and let's get rid of this stuff here. Let's get rid of some of this stuff. And just kind of start working with our shapes, our little amoeba shapes. Let's zoom back out. Okay, I think I'm going to connect these two, bring it over into this area. I'm just kind of giving some flow information here. So now I'm going to zoom in, kind of clean it up, and see what we could kind of come up with. Now remember, in order to switch between colors, over here you have the black and white. You could either hit the little arrow or you could hit the X button. The X button will switch between the white and the black. And that's all I'm doing to switch between these colors. Just make sure you don't push the wrong button like I just did there. Okay, so let's go ahead and connect this section with this section. And it's really just a matter of working this out, and I'm going to open that up a little bit because that was just a little too difficult to cut. So okay. See, now this is where it starts to get real interesting, because now we're down by the brow, and that's where the facial expressions happen. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up, make it a little bit easier to cut. We don't need that. Don't need that. Let's see what we can do here. Now, one thing you can be doing, since if you're just starting and you don't really have a whole lot of experience, just try things out, and if they don't work, either use the history palette. You remember I showed you that, where you have all of your history right there, or save often. And if you don't like where a pattern is going, you could revert to a earlier version of that pattern, and you might lose a little bit of time, but at least you don't lose your pattern. And that's really, I think that's what really matters, is you end up with a good pattern no matter what. Okay, let me zoom out, see how, yeah, see, that's coming along nicely. I kind of like that. I'm going to get rid of some of these. Well, problem is everything is so thin. I really want to kind of create some nice size holes in this. So I'm gonna just kind of open this up a little bit, just so that it's nothing. I'm not a big fan of like veining and all those real intricate cuts. You know, there's no doubt about it. There's times when you really do need to be veining and whatnot, but I try to stay away from it as much as possible, because you know, if I want a line drawing, you know, I just break out a pencil. But so I try to kind of stay away from the line drawing feel, and just start playing with shapes as opposed to lines. And I think you'll probably be a little bit more happy with the results if you kind of keep that in mind. Let's close this thing off. Oh, see, I really like that. Okay, so let's worry about this section right in through here. Let's see what we can figure out. Again, I'm just gonna kind of start blocking some of this in. cleaning up some of the gray areas, creating crisp lines. Probably get rid of that. I'm not sure if we'll need that. I guess if we need it, I'll put it back in, but he was just kind of hanging out there in the middle of space, and same thing with that. I guess we gotta decide whether it's going to be a separate hole or connected to the brow. I think we're gonna keep them separate, but in order to kind of make this cutting feel worthwhile, or this section a little bit more worthwhile, let's beef it up just a tad before we call this section good. This area over here, we don't need to clutter it up with any more holes, so let's go ahead and just pull that out all together. Okay, so we got kind of a nice little lake over here. Yeah, I like that. And just remember, you know, it is your pattern. If you don't like something, take it out. This is definitely a little bit more according to my preferences. You may not like these really crazy shapes like that. I find them interesting, but somebody else might find them a little bit disorganized and well, jittery, I guess. I don't know a better way to describe it, but it might be a little bit free-flowing for some people's taste. Some people like to have a little bit more tighter control over their cuttings. I like to get a little crazy with the energy, and I don't know if energy is really the right word, but I like to have a lot of movement, I guess, in the shapes that I put together. Okay, let's zoom out. Well, let's zoom out a little bit. And that's really what we're coming up with. And let's take a look at the original. Now the original has some, I don't know, it looks like the back here is a little dark. Let's go ahead and rough that in. I'm just going to do it over here. You might not be able to see this on your screen, but I'm just kind of roughing these areas out. Just kind of define the section that I want to paint in. I'm going to grab a larger brush, number 13. And I'm just going to block this, all this color in. And I'm going to get rid of this part here. And then just color this section in. Okay, I'm going to go back to my number 5 and start giving the edges a little bit of care. And we'll just kind of see if we can't clean up a few of these edges here. Okay. Now let's make sure we don't have any islands, any floaties that will make our life difficult, and it looks like we're doing a pretty good job of not creating any pieces that will fall out once we get it cut. So let's zoom out a little bit, and well, we got about 5 minutes. So let's kind of work over here on our, maybe over here on our cheek. So, it looks like we could, whoa, let's talk about extreme close-up. Okay, like right through here, looks pretty good. I think what I'm gonna, well, let's make sure we have our black selected. I think I'm gonna make sure that this entire section has a nice shape to it, so I'm gonna zoom into 200%, and I have the number 5 selected, and I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of clean up these lines a little bit over here, get rid of any islands, and just kind of try to make it easy to cut. It looks like the filters were able to find the perimeter of his face pretty well, and it defines it really quite nice. So we'll just kind of more or less keep exactly what the computer thought that the shadows should be. I'm going to go ahead and clean up some of these edges like I said. Okay, now let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna clean this area up over here. I think that's kind of an interesting area. So we'll go ahead and keep it the way it is. And I'm going to zoom out. Okay, let's look at the, you can see we have like a, whoops, a nice dark area in through here. We have a nice dark area in through there. So I think what I'm going to do is kind of extend this area out a little bit. Let's take a look again. Yeah, extend this area out in through this area, and let's go ahead and rough this area in too. We'll keep that area and maybe go a little bit over into there. So let's go ahead and zoom in. I'm gonna color all this in, make a bridge in through here because we're going to keep these elements separate. Let's go ahead and continue, well, continue coloring in this section here. Let's get a bigger brush. I'm not real patient when it comes to coloring, so I like to try to make it as easy as possible. Okay. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. If I stop pressing the wrong button, it would be a lot further ahead. So if you remember, I'm using the X key to switch between my black and my white for my brush. And I'm using the space bar so I could pan around the image and work each section individually. And there are times when I accidentally press the S key instead of the X key, and that takes me to a totally different tool altogether, and that's why it kind of keeps throwing up that error message. But once you start getting used to the keyboard commands, it'll save you a lot of time with just keystrokes and moving the mouse over to the toolbar every time. You know, it really eats up a lot more of time than you might think, especially if you're doing this for quite a while. Oh man, looks like we're running out of time again. We're at 30 minutes. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and stop right here. We're going to wrap this thing up. Stay tuned for the next episode where I pick up where I left off, and we'll continue working on this dog portrait. Until next time, happy scrolling.